There are places in America where the ground doesn't just hold history, it hides it. The Grand Canyon is one of them. We think we know this land. Layered stone, patient river, a million photographs taken from above. But below, beneath the rim where tourists lean and the river carves, there are openings that don't belong. Perfect angles cut into impossible rock. Passages that lead nowhere, or maybe somewhere we were never meant to find. Since the early 1900s, explorers, miners, and even Smithsonian archaeologists have whispered about chambers sealed inside the canyon walls. Rooms carved with precision, floors leveled like hallways, symbols no tribe ever claimed. The official reports say nothing, the maps show nothing, and when questions are asked, the answers come back quiet. Some believe they were storage caves. Others say they're remnants of something older, a civilization erased so completely it left only its architecture. But the stone disagrees. These caverns weren't dug by hand, they were engineered. This is not about myths, it's about evidence we were told to ignore. Coordinates missing from park archives, sealed tunnels marked unstable, and photographs that vanished after publication. Whatever carved those walls didn't leave by accident, and if it wasn't human, then who or what decided to build beneath one of the most sacred scars on Earth? Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video, you'll never see the Grand Canyon the same way again. The sealed, Forbidden Zone cave. It began with a newspaper article and ended with silence. On April 5, 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a strange report. An expedition financed by the Smithsonian had discovered a network of vast caves hidden deep in the Grand Canyon's north rim. According to the piece, explorer G.E. Kincaid had found carved chambers filled with artifacts of Oriental or possibly Egyptian origin, mummies and tools that predated any known culture in North America. The report claimed the Smithsonian had sealed the entrance for security and preservation. Officially, the Smithsonian denies the story ever happened. Unofficially, something was sealed. In the decades that followed, local pilots and river guides began to talk about a section of cliff face where the rock looked cut, squared off in geometric patterns that didn't match the surrounding strata. In the 1970s, hikers following the Colorado River recorded a metal grate bolted over a dark opening about 800 feet above the waterline. No trail led there. The area was later fenced and labeled restricted. The National Park Service calls it a safety measure. Unstable rock, potential collapse. But internal documents obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request list the same coordinates under a different heading. Cultural resource, unclassified. The designation is rare and used only when the park cannot verify whether a site is natural or man-made. Archaeologists who've studied the canyon agree that the surrounding rock, Redwall limestone, is so dense it could only have been shaped with modern tools. Yet the chamber has existed far longer than any drilling equipment. A retired ranger who worked North Rim security in the 1990s told a Phoenix journalist off record, "There's a door up there, not rock, iron or something like it. Every few years people try to climb to it, they don't get close. The air turns bad before you reach it, like the canyon itself is pushing you back." Photographs of the grate circulated online in the early 2000s before being scrubbed from official databases. A 2013 satellite scan shows a faint rectangular void in the same location. A cavity with perfect 90-degree walls. Maybe it's a natural fault. Maybe it's a myth that grew around a shadow in the cliff. But every ranger stationed near the North Rim knows the rule. Never fly drones near Marble Canyon. GPS fails there, and batteries drain within minutes. Whatever was carved into that rock didn't erode. It was built, and whoever sealed it made sure the door stayed closed. Because if the oldest canyon on Earth hides a man-made chamber inside its bones, then we have to ask who built the mountain before the world began measuring time. The longest hidden passage under the rim. In 2019, a geological mapping project meant to study groundwater flow beneath the north rim of the Grand Canyon uncovered something the researchers weren't looking for, a tunnel system that shouldn't exist. Using LiDAR and microgravity sensors, scientists from Northern Arizona University charted an empty space stretching more than 10 kilometers under the rim, a continuous corridor snaking parallel to the canyon wall, far below any known cave layer. They called it Project Echo Line. At first they thought the readings were errors, overlapping shadows of nearby fissures, but repeated scans confirmed the geometry. Uniform width, consistent elevation and perfect directional alignment, as though the passage had been engineered. The team tried to map it further, but the signal degraded below a certain depth, like sonar hitting something that refused to echo. One of the scientists later described the structure as too straight for nature, too old for us. The discovery was never publicly announced. The only reason it became known was a technical paper briefly uploaded to the university's server, live for less than 48 hours before deletion. But the cached abstract remained online. Subsurface void exhibiting linear morphology, inconsistent with karstic formation. Possible anthropogenic modification. When the National Park Service was asked for comment, they issued a short response. The Grand Canyon is a dynamic geological structure. Apparent alignments are natural. But the tone of the internal emails, later obtained through FOIA, told a different story. One message from a US Geological Survey technician read, "We've followed the cavity to its terminus. It doesn't collapse, it just stops. Flat wall, smooth. No mineral flow marks, no fracture lines, just a dead end, like a hallway sealed from the inside." Later attempts to remap the corridor failed. The instruments now show no reading at all, as though the void was filled or the ground itself changed density. But helicopter crews flying over the ridge still report subtle electromagnetic interference exactly where the map once traced its path. Local tribes, when shown the old scan, said the pattern resembled the mark of the Sipapuni, the path of emergence, where their ancestors rose from the underworld. To them, the canyon wasn't carved by the river. It was carved for something to rise through it. If that corridor was built or repurposed, it isn't just a cave, it's a passage. And if there's an entrance sealed beneath the rim, the only question left is whether it was meant to keep us out or something else in. The ancient undated cavern foundation. Every discovery in the Grand Canyon starts with stone, layers of it, each marking an age we can name. But below those layers are formations that resist identification altogether. Cuts, ledges, and hollowed rooms that seem too intentional to be accidents, yet too ancient to be attributed to anyone we know. The first documented mention appears in a 1936 geological field report. Surveyor Harold Jesperson recorded a series of level platforms carved into red wall limestone, showing tool-like uniformity. He assumed they were the remains of ancient dwellings, though he admitted no debris, ash, or human trace accompanies them. His notes vanished after submission. Only a carbon copy survived, found decades later in the personal archive of his assistant. In 1958, another team from the US Bureau of Mines rediscovered the same formations while conducting mineral assessments along the inner gorge. One photograph, labeled Foundation Cavity Sector H14, shows flat flooring, 90-degree corners, and symmetrical walls extending 10 meters back. The accompanying log states, "Structure resembles quarried space. No known mining claim." After 1960, the sector was redesignated as a geological hazard zone and closed to non-research personnel. Modern technology has only deepened the confusion. In 2012, a non-invasive seismic survey performed by Arizona State University attempted to date the floor sediment. The results returned impossible data. No detectable organic material. In short, no age at all. The rock itself could be measured, but the layer between floor and bedrock was sterile, as though something had removed every trace of time. One researcher compared it to a reset, a place geologically disconnected from the rest of the canyon, a room that doesn't belong to the same planet. In interviews, local Havasupai elders have long described certain chambers within the canyon as houses of breath, places forbidden except to the tribe's spiritual custodians. These aren't temples or tombs, they say. They're foundations, markers left by those who walked before humans began counting years. Satellite thermal imaging from 2018 revealed faint rectangular heat signatures along the same coordinates, consistent with internal cavities only a few degrees warmer than their surroundings. The exact pattern you'd expect from underground chambers insulated by dense stone. To this day, the Park Service lists the site as unstable karst environment, yet it remains the only unstable area never affected by erosion or landslide. The rock doesn't crumble there, it endures. Whatever those foundations once supported, they were meant to last. And if no tribe, miner, or engineer ever built them, then perhaps the canyon itself didn't begin as a scar. Perhaps it was a blueprint, because when the earth builds walls this precise, it's not nature you're looking at, it's memory. The unmapped dry caves with fossil archives. There are caves inside the Grand Canyon that no one has ever entered, and some that no one is allowed to. Not because they're unsafe, but because they're too perfect. Since the early 2000s, the National Park Service has catalogued more than 1,000 caves across the canyon. Only a fraction have official designations. The rest are simply numbered, Dry Cave 142, Chamber 611, System 4B. Each holds something preserved, frozen in air so dry that even bones refuse to decay. In 2015, a paleontological survey team documented an anomaly within one of these sites, a deposit chamber filled with vertebrate remains stacked deliberately, layer by layer, forming what looked like an archive. The fossils ranged from Pleistocene-era rodents to modern birds, all intact, positioned spine up, facing the same direction. It was as if someone had been collecting and filing them for centuries. What unsettled researchers most wasn't the arrangement. It was the absence of sediment between the layers. There was no natural process that could have placed them so cleanly. The official report phrased it cautiously: depositional pattern inconsistent with known biological or hydrological behavior. Translation: nothing alive or geological did this. The discovery was photographed, sampled, and sealed. The following year, the same team requested access to continue the dig, but their permit was denied. The cave was reclassified as ecologically sensitive, its coordinates redacted from future publications. Yet a leaked memo from 2016 suggests a reason. While sampling spores from the cave's walls, technicians recorded a stable ambient hum at 11 Hz, a frequency too low for human hearing, but consistent with active vibration. The sound was constant, rhythmic, almost like breathing. A geophysicist hired to reanalyze the data later compared it to the resonant pulse of a hollow cavity under strain. In plain terms, something inside the rock was moving. To this day, Dry Cave 142 remains sealed. No ranger patrols near its entrance. The park denies further fossil excavation, citing safety and preservation concerns. But satellite scans taken in 2021 show a subtle thermal anomaly, a thin, circular band of warmth surrounding the sealed section of wall, as if the chamber were heating from within. Maybe it's geological pressure, maybe it's chemical decay, but there's another possibility, one no official report has dared to print, that the canyon's most ancient caves aren't archives of life, but archives for it. Because if something built a library out of bone, what exactly was it trying to remember? The hidden alcove cave over the Redwall limestone. In 1988, two volunteer geologists from Flagstaff attempted what most climbers considered suicidal, descending 250 feet down the sheer Redwall limestone face to investigate a dark alcove visible only from a single turn in the river. They expected an indentation, a natural hollow in the rock. What they found looked more like an entrance. The log recovered from their expedition, later published in a local climbing journal, describes a smooth opening, 10 meters wide, cut straight into the limestone as if sliced. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly, and the light vanished after 6 feet. They noted no echo, an acoustic dead zone, and a faint mineral scent, like heated iron. The pair never reached the back wall. Their headlamps dimmed simultaneously, batteries drained, and both claimed to feel a weight behind the ribs, like the air was pressing back. They retreated, shaken but alive. The cave's coordinates were shared privately with a National Park Service contact. When a follow-up expedition was arranged 2 years later, the alcove was gone. The cliff section had collapsed, or so the park's official memo claimed. But later aerial photos show the same surface, intact, no debris, no scar. The dark slit simply wasn't there anymore. For nearly 30 years, the event was written off as misidentification. Then, in 2017, a team from the Grand Canyon Trust conducting erosion analysis along the same route spotted a familiar void. Same location, same shape. The lead scientist, Dr. Lillian Cross, recorded it briefly on her field camera before her GPS malfunctioned. When the footage was uploaded, something strange appeared in the final frame. A faint reddish glow pulsing from within the alcove, reflected on the surrounding limestone. The Park Service requested a copy for safety evaluation. The file was never returned. Within weeks, the expedition report was taken offline. Unverified sources claim that a private research group later entered the site during drought season, descending by rope at night to avoid detection. They allegedly discovered the same tunnel extending 30 meters inward, ending at a polished stone wall engraved with concentric grooves. The grooves were warm to the touch, vibrating softly, and covered with mineral patterns that didn't match any known geological process. Whatever the alcove was, it didn't erode. It moved. In the decades since, climbers have tried to relocate it again. Some swear the opening changes position each year, appearing at different heights along the same band of rock. Others claim it only manifests during dry lightning storms, when the canyon air turns metallic and still. To the park, it's an optical illusion. To those who've seen it, it's a door. And if the canyon walls can rearrange themselves to hide a single entrance, then maybe the builder never left. The silent water cave chambers below the water table. At the lowest reaches of the Grand Canyon, far beneath the trails and rivers that tourists see, lies a hidden layer of silence. These are the phreatic chambers, vast water-formed caverns discovered only through sonar and borehole imaging. They sit below the groundwater table, sealed under billions of tons of rock, unreachable by any human path. The U.S. Geological Survey began studying them in 2021 after sensors recorded unusual fluctuations in subsurface pressure, pulses evenly timed like the beat of something mechanical. What the sensors mapped defied logic. Circular chambers connected by narrow corridors, perfectly symmetrical, stretching for miles beneath the canyon's central axis. Every reading suggested the same impossible conclusion. These spaces weren't carved by water. They were sculpted against it. The walls showed density variations, layers of alternating minerals arranged in a spiral pattern, a design more like architecture than geology. One hydrologist compared it to a coiled shell, engineered to move water rather than be shaped by it. In other words, someone had built structures that could breathe with the earth. When drilling equipment attempted to reach one of the cavities, the borehole sensors picked up a faint vibration. Constant, subsonic, rhythmic. Then, at a depth of 200 feet, the drill jammed. The data feed registered a sudden pressure spike, followed by a drop to absolute zero. The hole refilled overnight. Days later, the project was suspended for safety review. The official report cited unreliable data caused by instrument feedback, but the logs reveal that every piece of electronic equipment used in that section malfunctioned simultaneously at 03:17 a.m. The same moment the sensors recorded one last pulse, stronger than all the rest. A private contractor present during the test described hearing a low exhale from the ground itself, a sound so deep it shook dust from the walls. Since then, the area's subterranean mapping has been frozen. The files were reclassified. Access denied, yet satellite gravimetric scans still show minor oscillations coming from the same region, a slow, steady heartbeat beneath the canyon's spine. Scientists blame groundwater shifts, but the pattern repeats too precisely, and deep beneath the Colorado River, in darkness no light has ever reached, the pressure rises and falls in intervals too human to be coincidence. Maybe the Grand Canyon isn't just a wound carved by time. Maybe it's a system, still functioning, still alive. Because if something built chambers that could breathe beneath the oldest rock on Earth, then whatever built them may still be listening. 6 discoveries. 6 reasons to question what carved the Grand Canyon and who was watching when it did. A sealed gate cut into a cliff no one can reach. A tunnel system too straight to be nature, too old to be ours. Foundations that refuse to age, as if time itself skips the stone. A dry chamber where bones breathe and fossils hum. An alcove that disappears, as if the mountain repositions its own mouth. And water caves that pulse beneath the earth, like lungs that never stopped moving. These aren't myths, they're coordinates, measurements, sealed documents, and archived anomalies that keep repeating one impossible idea. The Grand Canyon wasn't just formed. It was built. If the stone is architecture, then maybe the builders weren't visitors. Maybe they were part of the mountain itself, something ancient, conscious, and unfinished. We've spent centuries staring at its surface, trying to read the layers of time like pages. But some stories aren't written to be read. They're carved to be felt. And if the canyon still breathes, then it isn't a relic, it's a reminder. 6 caves, 6 blueprints, 6 quiet questions buried in rock. If you made it this far, thank you. Leave a like if one of these discoveries stayed with you. Tell us which one haunted you most and which we should explore next. But remember, not everything buried is dead. Some things are waiting for the right sound to wake up.